Does it work? Yes. Perfect. Okay. So, this one. Okay. This is the Sustainable Futures track. You're watching a Renewable Energy Systems talk. And it's called Blockchain Meets the Grid, mapping opportunities for builders exploring real-world energy systems. So this talk is mostly a food for thought talk. We'll try to give you a little overview of where you could, as builders, plug into existing systems. We try to give you a very low threshold entry point into this world. Okay, and we'll do that by mapping an energy system. We'll then look into what's already happening in regards to blockchain in this world, where we see opportunities, and then what you might want to know before you engage in this world. And at the very end, we sum it all up with a little toolkit that will help you to explore further if this is a world for you. Okay. So, why are we here? In the energy community, blockchain is kind of considered one of the key enablers of the next phase of the energy transition, the move from fossil fuels to 100% renewable energy. We are also, what you will see later is that even though there's a lot of potential, you don't actually see that much applied yet, sadly. We are also looking today particularly into the German energy transition, because that is one of the most solar punk projects in all of the world. You've seen in the presentation just before. It started in the 70s, it's still ongoing, and one of the really cool aspects right now is that if you look at the electricity demand in Germany right now, 60% is already covered by renewable energy. That's quite the achievement. But our goal is to get to 100%, and our goal today is, as speakers, we want to get you involved in this world. Okay, so first things, who are we that we can talk about these things? We had this wonderful introduction, so I don't have to repeat that. My name is Bernd, I'm a systems designer, and that's my colleague Andreas. He's an energy expert. And we work respectively for B.A.U.M Consult, which is a consultancy for the renewable energy world, and Ellery Studio, a strategic design agency that works exclusively also in the world of sustainability. Okay. Most of you have seen the talk before, so for the people who watch the recording, I can recommend watching the talk of Dami and Annika from B.A.U.M about decentralization, because that's the thing that our two worlds have in common. We have the energy world, on the other hand, kind of only adopted decentralization as a concept for the next phase of the transition, while blockchain was molded in it. It was built, it was born in it, right? Okay, let's look into the mapping. Let's look how does an energy system look like. For that, we actually worked together on a publication which is called Stromnetzfluss. The English title is Sun, Wind and Wires. It's an atlas of an energy system in transition. And it consists mostly of an extensive scientific model of the German electricity market. It's called the actors layer model. The weird thing was, before we started this project, we worked on it several years. It's a highly complex system. Weird thing is, there was no model of this whole market in existence. So we conjured it into life. And then the book goes on. It zooms into a lot of different topics of the energy transition, key technologies, and as you can see, lots of cute illustrations, lots of infographics, very low threshold, easy to access. We will provide you with this publication at the end of the talk. Okay, how do we build it? We accessed a lot of specialists from the field, from all areas, from all the crooks and necks of the energy transition, to gather the information that is necessary to map out a highly complex system like the electricity grid. As you can see, we built it with our hands. The first stages were like really making these connections, physically building the network, and then diving deeper and deeper into the layers. Okay, let's look at it. Quick map. Germany's energy transitions, the bird's eye view. Who are the players? To keep it really simple, because it is very complex, let's keep it simple. You have the producers of energy on the one side, and you have the consumers on the other side. So that you already learn some of the key players. Then you have something like a TSO. This is a transmission systems operator. Think of it as the highways of the energy distribution. And the next stage is the DSOs, the distribution system operator, which is the last mile, distributing the electricity then to the consumer. Okay, that seems simple enough, but it's, of course, as you can imagine, there's so much more under the hood in this system. So let's look into how this model that we created, how this breaks it open. We have 4 layers. We have a physical layer that shows how the actual physical energy is flowing. We have a market layer, this is how the money is flowing. A digital layer, how the data is flowing. And then in the end, an institutional layer, how this whole thing is regulated, how these things play together. Okay, let's break it down, the actors layer model in detail. I'll keep it short. The physics. There you can see again the energy generation on the one side, the consumption on the other side. In the middle, we have the TSO and the DSO. So simple enough, right? This is how the energy flows. What do we see? We see power plants, we see solar panels, wind farms, cables, transformers, lots of physical assets that exist in the real world. So blockchain entry points here would already be the identity of these assets. Tamper-proof metering, you've all heard of smart meters maybe, and something called grid edge automation. So more to that later. Let's move on to the market level. So it gets more complicated here. What are we looking at? We're looking at tariffs, we're looking at fees, energy trading, flexibility markets. We have 2 new players enter this level. We have like retail sellers and wholesale sellers of electricity. So what it's all about, it's the cash flows between the generators, the suppliers, and the users. And also here we have some interesting entry points for blockchain, peer-to-peer transactions, tokenization, micropayments, and programmable tariffs. We're moving on to the data layer. This one is particularly interesting because in the real world, so this is how the data flows, in the real world, this is almost exclusively used just to print your energy bill in Germany. So what are we looking at? What's measured? We have the smart meters, we have the Internet of Things, sensors, any grid management system. But of course, this data can be used to do forecasts, to do usage profiles. And in the end, it's all about the control logic, the automation of the layers. Again, here is also great opportunities for blockchain. You have smart contracts that could be useful here, secure data exchange, and anything in terms of verifiable automation. Okay. And this one is the most complicated layer because it's where the institutions come in. So who decides? It's all about legal frameworks, market roles, and compliance. How is it all regulated? The most affected in this whole system are the TSOs, the DSOs, and 2 groups that you will get to know in a short while, prosumers and what we heard in the last talk as well, energy communities. So it's all about governance structures on this layer. Here we see entry points with registries, DAOs, governance tokens, decentralized identity, and certification. Okay, but we've seen that between all these layers, in these layers, in each layer itself, there's a lot of opportunity for blockchain technology already. But where it gets really interesting is when these layers start to talk to each other. So for builders, the biggest opportunity is interfacing between these layers. So what's already out there? There is a bunch happening already, and that is where Andreas will now give you a little insight too.
Thank you, Bernd. So we have seen a lot of details about the energy system in Germany, and as it seems, it's very complicated. So, and obviously there might be some solutions already out there or something that you can do more. We saw a little bit about that, and I want to give you more insights on what is out there already, and maybe give you some food of thought, as Bernd already introduced, to go further with your ideas maybe in the energy sector. So I wrote a study in 2020, so it's been a while. Small disclaimer, it's just available in German, but I'm pretty sure all of you use AI systems to translate this, so just ask it then if you need something specifically. I will give you some insights to it. So it was a two-folded approach. The first part was looking into some of the consensus mechanisms that are out there, just 4 of them, and checking a little bit how are they built in an architectural way, and giving people who are interested in challenging this with their own ideas, implementing this into the system, to go through it and have a small navigation system if you want to look into that. So this was the first part, and the second part was, well, big promises and big things that we did. I was working at Technical University back then, and we had a big project that we also made the other book, so we had a lot of things going on. But big promises were made. Many people said, like, this is the next thing. We can disrupt also the energy system. We can do many things. So I wanted to look into the second part of the study, what is out there and what was done, in fact. And I'll give you here a small overview. You will not recognize exactly what it is, but you can research it later. We'll give you the materials. But there were a few key learnings that we saw. First and foremost, most of the things back then and still are built on the Ethereum blockchain technology. These are the ones that are orangey red. And most of the endeavors in this world were also built on peer-to-peer solutions. We have heard some of the decentralization and community approaches. So I do believe the community also recognized that here's a lot of music that wants to be played. We also learned that most of the things were initialized in Europe. So this was also interesting to see because we looked at the whole world. Obviously, this is not complete, but we looked at a big range of solutions, and this was in 2020. Now you might ask yourself, well, this was 5 years ago. How is this relevant today? Well, let's look at it. I revisited all of them, and I checked a little bit what is still out there, because as you know, sometimes you have projects, and then after a few years, someone opens the door, puts the project inside, and closes the drawer, and all the things are gone. So let's look at it. So I think positively speaking, 43% of the projects or initiatives are still out there. Some of them are more successful than others, but they're still active, so I think this is good. But approximately half are not out there anymore. So you can say, okay, whenever I start an initiative, there's like a 50-50 chance, let's say, to get there. So I think this is a high risk, but might be also a high reward thing that you might be willing to look into. And there are also some, I wasn't 100% sure where they are, sometimes a little bit foggy out there in the internet, but let's say we park them in the right side and say, we're not sure, so let's call it a 50-50 success rate, sorry. So looking at that, I wanted to give you some insights of a few examples that you just maybe already know or heard of, or might be just interesting for you to see. Just to give you some light into what is still working, I picked a few examples just to give you a quick heads up. So it's Power Ledger. They started in Australia, and they did a little bit what our previous talk was about. Namely the peer-to-peer trading between neighbors specifically. So if your neighbor has a solar panel and you think, it would be nice to buy electricity from this person next door, then you can do this with this. And then the next, let's say, level of implementation was then, what if you can also buy this from anyone, anywhere? So like a energy market, let's say. I don't know, I live in Berlin. I want to buy electricity from a rooftop in Hamburg. I could do so with this sun contract that was started in Slovenia. But where is light, there is also shadow. So I also brought you one that failed, because we also talked about failing and not being successful. And this V-Power initiative that was started in Lithuania, they raised a lot of money, I think about 40 million for the IPO, or ICO as it's called. And unfortunately, they failed, and it was slowly phased out then a few years ago, and you cannot find anything really about that. So there is also some, let's say, not so good examples, but we believe looking at all these things, it might be a big learning curve to see what goes, what doesn't go, or maybe just learn how and why they failed, so maybe other people can do it better. So this is just a little bit of inspirational thought also, and information for you, so you can give it a look later on if you want to investigate. So let's look about further opportunities, because today I want to give you just a little bit of, just the entry point if you're interested in joining the energy sector, let's say, with your surely good ideas. So we heard about peer-to-peer trading, and we heard about there are a lot of communities out there. I think 9,000 in Europe, probably the count is rising. And there are already some solutions out there for peer-to-peer, but it's still used very little. So this Power Ledger that I mentioned, they start in Australia. I think they have another hub in Thailand and now in France. So slowly people are adapting it, but I do believe there is more things to do. We heard about Grid Edge. Bernd did talk about it before. So the entry point, or let's say the connection between the grid operators and the actual consumers. This is a very interesting point to harvest and maybe also dock onto interesting ideas. So there might be a lot of opportunities, especially with this secure and decentralized approach. And if you look a little bit further, there is also a system in the energy sector called virtual power plants, where aggregators pool all capacities or big and small capacities in the energy system and then trade this electricity or whatever capacities are out there with others to gain some money from that. So I do believe there's also a lot of opportunities in this very digital way of aggregating electricity capacities, because as for now, we're just talking about electricity, nothing else. Yeah, and then we heard it before, there are obviously energy communities that need your support. I believe that another thing that was maybe not mentioned before is the lack of skills in these communities, because you might have an engineer and you might have someone who can build it, but maybe they cannot manage and organize it. Maybe they don't know all these, I would say, complex structures that we showed you before, and maybe we can make it a little bit easier and accessible so they can actually empower and build their community. So there are a lot of things that can be done. And one more thing that I'll mention before I give back to my co-speaker, there is also something called flexibility in the energy market. And in our project back then, we had a big supermarket chain, and they had a cooling cell, you know, where all the stuff is stored that you don't see while you go to the supermarket. And they connected to the grid in a smart way, and they would turn off this cooling cell when there would be too much electricity they would turn it off when there's little electricity in the market, and vice versa, turn it on where there's an oversupply of electricity because, for example, there's a lot of sun and all the solar panels are producing electricity. So these are possible solutions that can be done in a real world scenario, but also in other scenarios. And with this, I'll give back to Bernd.
Great, thank you. Yeah, flexibilities is one of the most fascinating principles in my opinion, because it is a very, very complex kind of issue. There's lots of dynamics, things change really quickly, and I have the feeling that this is a perfect nurturing ground for applying the blockchain to solve some of the issues that are happening there. If you want to dive into this topic more, we also have a nice publication about that. It's called Let's Talk About Flex. Again, it's a publication with lots of nice infographics that explain what flexibility is, and it explains how we can use it, how you can identify it. Also sadly in German, but again, the AI will read it for you. Okay, and then if we zoom out even more, one last opportunity is again like switching sectors. We were talking just about the electricity sector so far. But there's more sectors. There's also the transport sector, there's the heating sector, and each of them again has its own set of rules, its own dynamics. And it gets really interesting when you start connecting these silos that are separated from each other, among each other. There's a lot of optimization potential. So that's also like the grand scale, but also the most complicated area to like make connections. So what would I have wanted to know when I entered the energy market? Here's a few things to keep in mind, just some very basic stuff. We are not able to disrupt the system there. We have it is an organically grown system. We have lots of lock-in effects. This thing is a lifeline for society. So we cannot really reinvent the grid, we have to extend it. Because as you can see, you can see nothing. That's the point. It's critical infrastructure. We cannot just turn it off and then experiment with with a lot of elements. So think of it like you want to expand your gaming rig, your gaming PC, and you have to do it while it's plugged in and while it's running. There's only so much you can do in this case, right? Then the next thing, also a really tough nut to crack, is the fear of contact. Most decision makers do not have blockchain really on their radar, or even understand, or even know that this technology exists and what it does. So the main thing you will hear very often is when you approach a decision maker in the energy world, they will go like, blockchain, crypto, isn't that scam stuff? And so you have this really huge knowledge gap. So not only do we have to come up with good ideas, we also have to convince people and educate people of how this thing can be made useful for this great endeavor. Okay, then there's regulatory boundaries. Because it is a crucial part of society depends on it, it is heavily regulated. So keep that in mind, getting in there. Lucky, nowadays we have AI to help you make sense of all these legal papers. Then it is also really important that all things work together. Like, you can experiment, but of course you will not have total adoption anywhere. So making things work together and then building a lot of identity and trust around all these approaches to the energy system, also a big thing to keep in mind. And trust is another really important keyword, because we've seen the geopolitical turbulences we're experiencing over the last few years have a massive effect on our energy system. So one of the things that the energy community is talking mostly about at the moment is security. But again here, of course, we can play into a strength of crypto as well. Okay, so we've shown you a few of these publications. If you want to use them to further navigate these complex spaces, you can download them on my link tree. So there's like all 3 publications there as a free download. Throw it into the AI of your choice, and let's see if it can enrich your ideas. It can give you some more pointers of where to look for solutions, and maybe it can challenge your ideas this way. Okay, bottom line, how do we sum this all up, what we just told you? The future of energy definitely needs systems thinking. And if we want to build something truly decentralized, we'll have to start by understanding the existing grid. And even more important is you. Like, we need your help. You've seen the system is highly complex, lots of variables, lots of stuff that can't be steered come into play. What we need is you explaining to people like us how we can really make sense of this, how we can use this technology which is very new for the energy world, how to benefit of that. And in particularly, we need your imagination, your creativity of how to introduce these ideas into this rigid system. Exactly, and with that, thank you. I hope you could take something away of that, and we can give it up to the questions. Oh yeah, maybe one more thing. We have a little mini quiz. The person who can tell us the German energy demand, how much is currently covered with renewable energy? First person to know, the first will get one of the books. Perfect. Yes. You will get one of our Atlas books, the Sun, Wind, and Whale ones.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Bernd and Andreas. It seems like everyone was quite attentive to your presentation. And we have a few minutes for the questions. So if any one of you has a question, feel free to ask as of now.
Don't be shy.
Hi there, thank you very much. What do you think is the biggest challenge to get regulators and energy grid current operators to start adopting blockchain? And how can we explain that technology that's there can be used for that good?
Good question. I do not have the solution to it, but I might have some approaches. So I think showing or showcasing that specific things work already in other realms. Let's say you approach a German regulator, but things are working, let's say in Australia, as we saw it on other countries. There might be a good entry point saying, look, they're already having something that works. What would it take maybe to adopt that for you? And would you be willing to talk about this? And the second part of that, I think it's very important in general, is about explaining people what this is. And in the study, I tried to explain this still quite complicated technologies of these consensus mechanisms and everything that comes with it in the study. But I still had the feeling that it's very complex and there's no easy entry points for people, especially when they're biased by maybe negative news or thinking that it's a scam or something like this. So maybe it's also upon you to open a little bit the stage and break down these complexities into digestible pieces. To just say, like, you don't have to fear, this is not the technology that's going to eat you up. It's more, if you understand it, you can leverage it to your own needs and maybe success stories that are already out there. So I think these are two components that could be used. But again, it's an old industry that comes from a monopoly point of view, as many other big industries also exist. So it's breaking apart a little bit these, how can I say this, big piece into smaller fragmented things. It's already happening, so we have good things out there, but it's just a start, and we have to speed up, as we heard also in the talk before.
Other questions?
Thank you very much. Just one question for your opinion. The recent huge power outage in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Would you say that this made the operators more wary of new technologies, or do they see that there is actually more need for new technologies to stabilize grids?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's not completely solved what exactly happened there yet, but I think people are investigating a lot. I've once heard from a distribution operator, so those who put the cables, under the earth and everything, that these cables are so old they don't even know exactly what kind of status they have and how good they will function over the next years and decades. So I think one of the things that people should do, especially those who have these cables underground, they should reassess what they have and maybe also revamp a little bit this infrastructure, because if you want to rebuild and do things in a better way, we need to make sure that at least the connection points work properly. So I think that's maybe one of the first steps, but I do believe even in Berlin, that's also the one that are talking, they said some things we also don't know. They can measure endpoints, but they can measure anything between because it's in the ground, what can you do? So, but yeah, it's a big complex problem, and maybe we can take it to the coffee afterwards.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Bernd and Andreas. It was amazing presentation.